Greetings, it's Marv Barnes reporting in, and today we will be talking about historical historical events and basically what's occurring on this Tuesday afternoon. And how we're gonna do this is I'm not gonna bore you with a history lesson or something like that. You can go to school if you want to listen to how to get a textbook. What I will be doing is basically taking current progress and illustrating for you a predicted route as to where the society is at. I mean, I guess it's not the most enlightening opinion, but I'll try. But without further ado, we will be we will be starting with basically an overall summarization of what has occurred. We have hit the 21st century, and technology has definitely been quickly and readily adapted to people's needs versus a national need, as was the cause of the 20th century. And those have had that has had its pros and cons as well, but it does definitely show how ingenuity and manufacturing have been quickly changed and fitted to meet human needs. And I feel like that was the real innovation of the 21st century. When people are able to manipulate technology and turn it into a sort of its own culture. And I feel like by taking, you know, this the 21st century basically took all of the history book accomplishments out of invention and innovation, and they replaced them with more practical means and more practical methods. And this has yielded to us, I'm not going to go into detail because tech is another day to talk about, but mainly the internet has definitely changed for the better. Telephone and transportation definitely. As you know, cities are becoming more aware of what determines a metropolitan center. They have definitely caught up with what it means to make a road network in a sense. And to put things in perspective, you can always, this doesn't really reach the minor cities, but major cities typically have multiple means of getting in and out. They typically lead to airports. They typically lead to other means of transporting yourself quickly across the city or across cities or even across the state, depending on where you are. And this can definitely inspire further works or minor works, like for example a modern trolley system where you can appeal to local needs without having to, build a heavy rail. And not to throw dirt on the heavy rail is definitely fed commuter needs as well, which is very important in keeping a metropolitan city center relevant, because if people cannot get to and from work, then you cannot rapidly grow a city center. So I guess in all, well, not in all, but as uh a thing, something like that. Not a thing. That's stupid. I'm stuck off of previous discussions. As a sort of common thread between innovations, it seems that forming networks seems to be the focus of the 21st century, which is radically different from the 20th century, where everything was more about tying or creating, or basically um creating connections, and then working on connecting those connections and stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see how simply 100 years later, those connections are inspiring further connections, and hopefully in the future we will see massive superstructures, just works of art essentially manifested in construction and architecture in the form of maybe a partial bridge or some form of connection between the continents. But that's way ahead. We talking about like maybe even the next century or two. I mean, who knows? It depends on what really needs to be done in this century in terms of working and mastering the networking of city sensors and all of that other stuff. But more importantly, creating a sort of like every city has a main street, creating sort of a main road in a sense to bring back that old Roman feeling. Like they used to say, all roads lead to Rome. It would be kind of cool to have that same thing in the modern century where all roads lead to America. Or something like that. But I mean, we talking about building over water, then weather conditions can definitely turn this into a really reckless situation. And then we talking about cost, we talking about the sheer materials you would need to attempt this will require a joint effort between nations, and that leads to political breakdowns as to ownership. And then it's not even worth it if you turn a road into a military blockade or something like that. Like it's no point in making something that's supposed to be open to the people more of a national agenda versus simply a simplification of transportation. But that's just reflection and all of that stuff. But on a more relevant note, I guess it seems that the computers or the computer industry is definitely moving towards a make it or break it moment, in which we are waiting for that invention that people say, wow, I was alive for this to happen. And once that finally surfaces and comes out, then people will be like, yeah, it's the 21st century. So, in other words, I guess the next case or matter would be, how would the computer industry go about this? I mean, it's such a versatile device that you can't even really say what is and is not a computer at this point. That's how widespread and influential the computer has become. But at the same time, expanding with the same simple principles of connective technology is still stagnant to innovation. And that is where the computer is a threat. The computer is making it so that innovation is no longer necessary, because essentially the principles upon which it is built is have essentially been mastered in the form of the smartphone device, which basically show that you could take a computer, you could take a phone, and you could make it all work. And that within itself was a wow moment, until they realized that even a smartphone still has limitations. In reality, the smartphone pointed back to a hole in the network system, in which, in the perfect 21st century world, networks, no matter what network you are affiliated with, whether it be Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, yada yada yada, will be able to reach you from any point in a nation. There should be no dead zones in a fully developed nation. And that is probably the biggest struggle that companies are working on, because usually to counter to counteract that point that the network has holes, you have to also ask yourself, in the places where there are holes, are there also people that inhabit these areas on a regular basis? And if you cannot say yes, then you can't really argue that that counts as a realistic hole. But at the same time, you can argue that it is a hole in the simplest sense of a place where you cannot reach the internet. However, you also have to say that this is also a business. Networking technology is innovative, not reached its innovative ceiling, but is definitely plateaued in innovation. At the same time, it has also been susceptible to investor relations, meaning you cannot build anywhere and everywhere unless there is a profit for it to make that work. And to put things into perspective, Optimum Wi-Fi by Verizon is a feature that still has yet to reach everywhere. People don't even know how fast the internet can really be, because companies are still fiddling with, okay, first we gotta reach everybody with the internet. And then once we reach everybody with the internet, we have to make a fair price for both sides, because, companies can't afford to pay for the best of the best hardware if they're not getting the best of the best profits from it. And that has led also to a lag in networking framework, because most people still remember landlines, or most people still use a wired connection. Even in colleges, universities, there's still a wired connection. There is no indefinite there is no definite Wi-Fi connection. There is no Wi-Fi that will always work and always reach every device all day, every day, without needing maintenance, without needing to compensate for changes in elevation, without needing to compensate for changes in what devices are compatible, without needing to compensate for what devices can't reach it because of whatever reason, or simply for just keeping up with user demands. So in other words, even though Wi-Fi has definitely obliterated the wired connection in terms of innovation and in terms of convenience, the wired connection will always be the most stable in terms of being counted on to do the job when you need the job done, if you need the job done. And that is also a problem that companies are facing. More importantly, we have to take into consideration that internet is more of a high population event, meaning there are a lot of cities in the US which probably don't use the internet, use an older version of the internet, or probably never even heard of the internet. So, that's not fair to them, because if somebody told me, oh, I can't get a job because I don't live in a particular city, that will make me feel a certain type of way, because we all have our comfort zones as to where we live, how we would like to live, or where we would like to live. So, bringing equality with the internet is also a problem that this 21st century is facing. On the other hand, the sheer range of what can use the internet has vastly improved. Even simple things like the TV and stuff, like becoming more like a computer device every day. The TV doesn't even come with cable no more. You used to be able to just buy cable and just call it a day. Now you get cable, you get internet, and you get phone. It's like, what? And then put into consideration, internet essentially has taken over cellular relations anyway, in terms of the fact that you don't even need to have a cell phone service in order to hit somebody with. Back before the internet really got serious, like people had beepers and they had cell phones. You didn't really have both, because you didn't really need both. You either tell somebody to hit you on the beeper or you call them in person. Nowadays, you don't even have to talk to somebody. You can send them a text message provided you have Wi-Fi and call it a day. But those have its own advantages and disadvantages, because text messaging, not everybody's gonna, if somebody's driving or something, nobody's gonna notice a text message. Somebody's gonna notice an attempted call. So I guess in terms of importance, internet definitely divisions that. If you need to make an important call, the internet is not for you. But if you're like a kid or a teenager, you need to hit somebody up real quick and jump on the internet and like that. So I guess that has its flaws and drawbacks too. But that's that tech stuff. This is getting hard. Um, let's see. I guess let's look at the home and stuff. Technology has definitely made obsolete most homes in terms of how that home contributes to communication technology, because everybody used to stay home and talk on the phone, because landlines was king. I mean, you didn't really need to really have an internet, because if you knew somebody, you had something to do. Nowadays, it's all about how fast your internet is. Depending on how fast you can get your internet to be, you have a whole culture that's available to you that wasn't available to you back in the day. You got cats that will play Call of Duty till their balls fall off. And then, at the same time, Facebook, social networking, and all that other stuff, eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew all day, and that's crazy. Like 20, 30 years ago, people would be like, "What? People do what?" Because back 20, 30 years ago, we talking the most advanced computer they had was the arcade, and people used to hang out there. But that's still people to people. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that technology has definitely taken the interaction out of human activities in terms of like if you that type of person you like to see a person face and talk to them, then the internet is not for you. But if you one of them young cats that like to, you know, talk a lot of shit on the internet, yada yada yada, then the internet is for you. And that's another culture that the internet has brought in. Along with games, the internet has definitely brought in a lot of trash talking, a lot of anonymous behavior, anonymous juvenile delinquent behaviors, where a person could essentially, you know, with the right internet and the right, you know, websites and whatever, you know, whatever social circles you talking about, we could definitely like talk a lot of shit and have a lot of fun doing it, basically. So I'm like, that shit is pretty cool too. The internet is not just some just staring at a computer screen all day like it. Like in early 21st century, the computer was a fad. To be honest with you, it's an entertainment device. With a dial-up connection, you couldn't convince nobody that staying home and playing internet was cool. And then once this internet stuff really started to catch on, I mean, people said, "I ain't going outside again," and they meant that shit. So I'm like, yeah, man, technology is taking us places. They may not be the best places all the time, but it definitely feel good to move again. So I guess enough for the internet focus. What else is technology taking us? Technology has definitely taken the hard work out of hard work. I mean, even if you look at the typical construction worker, they ain't really doing much without a machine nearby anyway. I mean, that shit is crazy. It's like, damn, you made the guys that used to slave in front of pyramids look like chumps. I mean, that's not to argue with that. That's not the worst thing that machines could do for people. But I mean, like with all of this, basically machines could plan it, could build it, all of that stuff, and you don't even got to do nothing but watch it do it. um, so I guess it took the human labor hours that people used to calculate and stuff out of the calculations, which is a good thing too. But I mean, in terms of machines lending themselves to human efforts, that's probably been nothing new since the advent of you know, uh, oh yeah, power technology, in which we talking about technology has moved since that has moved without human effort. But I mean, I guess in terms of the 21st century, we move away from that and we focus more on abstract concepts like you know, there's a really strong emphasis on the software stuff now, which most people want to better wrap their heads around anyway, because basically how it works is you you can't even really explain this to somebody that has never seen a computer before because it would sound crazy. You you type in imaginary characters, right? These imaginary characters will interact with a physical piece of the machine, right? The physical piece of the machine will use these invisible characters to essentially create something that essentially doesn't exist. And I feel like that was the unknown miracle of the 21st century. It made the abstract exist without really existing. But I feel like people don't get it because it's not as futuristic as people want it to be. Like, people want to see the stuff they see in movies and stuff. They want to see the light displays that you can interact with your hands and stuff. And the retinal scans and the fingerprint scans and, you know, all this futuristic stuff. But I'm like, you don't get it, do you? A machine is playing with variables that do not exist in the real world. And that's I feel like that's something that has gone over most people's heads. Like, if you ask somebody, do you think that the 21st century has accomplished anything significant, they would tell you no, most likely. Because the first thing they probably assuming is that you're not talking about technology, you're talking about an event, you're talking about a person, you're talking about, you know, something that's physical. Like, you get how this this phenomenon has occurred. In real life, physical things dictate the movement of history, which is why history has overlooked the non-physical thing, which has had an effect on physical things. People are really, and essentially, sitting in front of a physical device, which is using imaginary information to create real things. And you wouldn't believe people until if it wasn't for the printer or the copier or something that can output something that makes sense to you. Because I guess you could say that we've always been playing with imaginary things in terms of language, in terms of ideas, in terms of scientific pursuits and yada yada yada, which manifested themselves into physical things like the airplane, like the rocket, the satellite space stuff. But those are all physical things. Essentially, computers have allowed the creation of a sort of magic. Be careful here. We don't want to talk crazy now. I said a sort of magic in which people are able to allow an artistic expression that doesn't require skill, that doesn't require practice, and most importantly, that doesn't require time. And that by itself has become the the Jesus of the 21st century. The prophet, the paragon, the whatever you want to call it, of the 21st century. Because if you ask somebody to reproduce this effect, to start from the basic and create a device that uses nothing to create something, they wouldn't know what the fuck you're talking about. And then you would tell them it's the computer, but they wouldn't believe you. So I guess in a basic sense, you do have to work with something, because it's not like the computer is an extension of your brain. It's physical. You can touch it. You can feel it. If you hit somebody in the head with it, you probably hurt them badly. But when you think about it, if you ripped open the machine and you saw what was underneath it, your eyes wouldn't believe it, because you're playing. Okay, I'll entertain it. Because there are people that will doubt what I'm talking about and say it don't make sense. So I'll break it down for you. Okay. The machine itself are components, right? Those components came from various sources. Manufactured metals, manufactured plastics, manufactured something in between. And from there, it was put together and then fed with what energy, electricity, some old industrial era concept that most people forgot about anyway. And this then gave life to something that makes no sense. Because you turn it on, and then after that, you get I would assume you have a blank screen because we're talking about the basis of creation here. We're not talking about something that's already been formalized in a factory and ready to ship out into a neat little package. We're talking about something that is asking you to tell it what to do, which is probably already wild because it's not a human, it's not a person, it's not an animal, it's not any form of life that will show a reservation for its own existence. And yet, it demonstrates a type of logic that is totally dependent upon what you give it. So, if we're talking about an inanimate object here, we're talking about an object that has essentially taken the clockworker's care of mechanism and function, right? Expanded it out and finally instituted in these abstract values that have always been separate from physical values. Like when you think about a chair doesn't make any sense until you give it a physical form, right? Okay. You still wouldn't know what I was talking about till I pointed to a chair and told you that's a chair. A computer, on the other hand, can take a chair, the word chair, break it down, symbols, characters, understand it as what you have defined it as, and then you give it more tools to define it even more. So essentially, the computer has taken the human imagination and given it a template from which it can move from a world that nobody would otherwise exist in to a world where everybody can exist in. And I know we getting real philosophical here for no reason, but I'll get to the point. The computer has taken nature as in how the world works, and allowed for a canvas that will always exist, that will always be modifiable, that will always be adaptable, and that will always be able to be duplicated with little to no effort. And that is within itself says a lot about the 21st century. In other words, the 21st century has accomplished in little to no time a total disregard for human effort. Now, this could be taken as a insult or a biased opinion, as in I feel negative towards this, but it's not like that. What I'm saying is that the computer has allowed for history to no longer go backwards in terms of invention, because that's always been a problem. I can imagine that's always been a problem before the creation of network technology, that somewhere along the line somebody gonna fuck up. either documents are going to get lost, books are going to get burned, or somewhere in between in the form of war in which human progress, human information will get lost forever and never be able to be brought back due to human effort. And this may sound stupid because I know it doesn't take much to break a computer, it doesn't take much to ruin a computer. However, understand though, because you have all the resources and faculties to take everything you have made and keep it preserved in an easy to store format, you don't never ever have to worry about somebody not knowing something. In fact, the computer has did the opposite. Rather than make people stay stuck in that doubt that I'll never know something, it has created the doubt that people don't know something. And that may sound crazy. However, think about it like this. The internet is essentially everything, every device in a reachable network in terms of, because people think that networks, you know, have a specific size. They don't have a specific size. A network is only limited by the last device it can reach. And if you can continually extend the last device you can reach, you can essentially make a network infinite. And because you can essentially make a network infinite, the passing on of information will also be infinite. So in other words, there can never be an event in which information gets lost forever and is not retrievable, is not salvageable. The other argument is that information has encouraged people to go back to their old ways, which is to hoard, which is to exert power, which is to try to influence, try to basically take these old human values what are sitting around now because of the internet and then reinvent and revitalize them in a new context. And to some point, that's true. You got people on the internet which have obtained fame, which who have attained status, who have attained power because of the internet. And that's going to happen. We're all human here. We all want what we want. We all want to do what we want to do, and that's going to happen. But I guess the real advantage of that is that exertion of power on the internet is severely limited. It's not like back in the day where you could essentially pillage a city, pillage a town, probably most likely a town, because it's not really a city compared to now. Pillage a town, burn the library, sack the castle, keep it moving. And now everybody assed out because everything that people worked for is either took, destroyed, or other words, not even worth it anymore because it's just going to encourage people to come back and do it again. So what the internet has essentially done is allowed for a sort of reservoir of information that can and will be manipulated for whatever reason. And that's just going to be I feel like that is going to be the recurring problem of the 21st century, that problem of absolute power, which is ironic because you would think that in a modern society, absolute power is no longer uh, a realistic facet of society because, you know, We not talking kings here. We damn sure not talking gods no more. If I feel like if any political figure tried to proclaim themselves as God, people would look at them like, I think that God's drunken too many. So, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the internet has really brought into perspective that saying that um, knowledge is power. And the reason I say this is because along with the internet has come standardization and routine and procedure. There's been a lot of that nowadays too, where you know, identification wasn't really a problem back in the day because in reality there was no way you could really identify everybody around you without it turning into a guessing game. There's no way you would be able to be like you're him or he's you or but nowadays identification is definitely turned into a way of life more so than a simple means of navigating a society as it used to be. And what that means is that the computer has definitely taking over human habits because that was the proof that it wasn't magic. The fact that its habits are assimilating human basic day-to-day interactions. You know, nowadays you're gonna have even kids are gonna have some form of identification as to who they are, where they live, where they're from, who you get what I mean? Like everybody has a social security number, a birth certificate, two documents which you know before the internet, before the computers didn't really mean shit. I mean, if my birth certificate was written on some paper and given to me and I lost it and it's in a city that nobody knows or nobody's familiar with, then I'm essentially an invisible man. Same thing with the social security number. If you can't identify who I am, then my social security number doesn't matter anyway. So, you know, with the computer, by putting computers any and everywhere, it made identification that much more important. Usually before, nobody cared who you was until you was trying to do something. I mean, like leaving the country or trying to get a specific job or you know, basically trying to get a specific job or leaving the country or something. Anything else, nobody cares who you are. I mean, they don't have a reason to care, but now they do because if you have the means to put a label on every single person you see, whether it be a name, a number, or some form of um like a serial code, some form of serial code on a person, then you can essentially do what census have been trying to do for years and years and years, which is account for everybody. And once you're able to account for everybody, then the internet makes sense. Then this whole system of connectivity, interconnected things makes sense. Because once everything is factored in, the internet becomes a bank. It becomes a sort of bank in the sense that with the right keys, essentially, you could learn anybody's name, you could learn anybody's identity, you could learn a lot about a person that you wouldn't be able to learn from just coming outside and staring at them all day. So, you know, that it has its repercussions as well, but mostly it just means that the internet has definitely been taken seriously as a tool. And I mean, righteously so, though, because if, if the internet was not, didn't have that potential, it would not have been created. Everything is created for a specific purpose. And I'm not trying to scare nobody into thinking, this is we in the Matrix now, or this is a bad movie or something. I'm just trying to point out that history has taken steps, albeit not large ones, but steps towards a specific future. And this future will be very, very logical. It will be very, very simple. And it will be very, very standardized. And standardized is a very important word for the future because it captures how everything ties together. Most people think of standardization as simply something that keeps happening over and over again. It's more than that. True standardization is a sort of glue which holds everything together. By standardizing any and everything, you essentially organize any and everything, which has always been a human habit. The internet has yielded itself to human organization, and that is why it has become so potent in day-to-day lives and day-to-day activities. Because, you can organize your room on Monday. By Friday, the shit is in ruins. By Sunday, you like, I should, right? And then by Monday, you do it. And then it's like, what was the point? What is the point of organizing something if it's just going to become disorganized all over again by you accessing it? And that is the beauty of the internet. It will always be organized. It will always be ready. And it will always be accessible. And, where that will lead us is not even limited in imagination, but more so in utility. Because once all the hard stuff has been organized, what more do you need the internet to do for you? That is a problem that I can't really explain. Because the internet itself is not limited by your imagination or by the hardware that makes it, because essentially imagination is what inspired the hardware that makes it anyway. Where the internet is failing is going back to what I was talking about earlier in innovation. Once people are able to make the internet do what they want it to do, they're not going to care about what other people want it to do. And that is where the internet is failing. Because accessibility is what's going to spur people to engage the internet in more and more creative ways, which will also lead to more and more creative ways to essentially, put a ceiling on the internet. And for the average person, that's not going to affect you, to be honest with you. The idea of a internet war or a technological war is not a feasible, plausible idea, because no one is going to result in harm from it, but people are definitely going to lose out from it. And that itself has its gifts and its curses, because you probably wouldn't feel comfortable if someone was able to simply press a few buttons and learn everything about you and your family. At the same time, if someone could learn something about you and your family, you would probably want to know who it is, correct? So, I guess that would be my closing thoughts on that one. But well, my final logic on it, on the 21st century history context, is going to be is that the internet, computers, all technological advances which have occurred in the 21st century have been in 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 the aim of essentially making life organized, categorized. It's more so categorized than anything else. And that is an accomplishment, but also a restriction. But as we all know, the final question is, how can absolute power corrupt the internet? And that is what the future is going to tell us. So thank you for everybody listening. This is the time for the supporters. Shout out to you guys. There aren't any yet, but when there will be, this is your time. This is your moment to shine. You guys are going to be the best. Even if you guys don't exist yet, you guys are the best. Thank you and good night.